All right, everyone, the allergen count today is heinous, so it's going to be difficult to make all my videos, but I'm going to try my best. We got to talk about the Democratic coalition and how the Democratic Party at the moment is basically in a free fall. In the last 72 hours, the party has begun to have that fabled collapse that I've spoken of that would eventually happen, and it might rip the party apart right before the midterms, laying waste to the Democratic landscape, giving the Republicans a red wave. Then resulting probably in a reformative movement within the Democrats. You'll get a synthesis candidate or a New Deal sort of thing, and then they'll actually be a political party again. So don't worry, Democrats, not all's lost for 2020, but based on what I'm seeing, you're going to get wiped out in the midterms. There's going to be huge... The Republicans are looking stable and sane right now on every front. The economy is still marching along. Don't be too optimistic. Yeah, Biden is right. Vote scared, essentially. That's your last hope now that the immigration thing has not gone your way. But here's the thing. A fan on Twitter showed me a clip from CNN where, what's her name, Angela Rye, I think it is, was talking about how Pelosi and Schumer should shut up about Maxine Waters because she's black, and if she were white, they wouldn't hold her to that standard. Now, I disagree with that generally, but there is a kernel of truth to her statements there. The Democratic Party is led fundamentally by extremely rich, considerably old neoliberals who are about 90% white. And then you have a few opportunists, like an Al Sharpton or something. And not exactly an actual progressive. These people, over and over again, they talk to like the black community, and they'll do like a Hillary Clinton. They'll be like, I got hot sauce in my wallet right now, haha. And it's like so great. It's basically a minstrel show or something. They talk a big game about caring about the poor, caring about the minorities. Then when they get elected, what do? But fuck nothing for any of these groups. They don't give a shit about the working class, regardless of their race. They weren't on the forefront of gay rights. The libertarians were back in the fucking 1970s. They're not progressives. They're not even liberal. They're just corporatists. They look exactly like the Boehner Republicans. Now, the Republicans had fundamentally... Here's why I can almost see the future happening. Because you look to the past and you can inform yourself. The Republican Party in 2012 with Ron Paul looked almost exactly like the Democrats in 2016. Very, very similar. You get a candidate who honestly could not win the national election, Sanders or Ron Paul. I totally believe that. And Sanders won't be president, so stop talking about it. It's not going to happen. Ron Paul gets cheated by the political structure. Bernie Sanders obviously did too. Minor candidate, not the candidate who got a majority of support, but someone who had been cheated despite having a very energized, smaller, yes, but highly energized base. And here's another point of overlap. The Republicans at the time had the lamestream Boehnerite sort of establishment, boring, the Mitt Romney candidate, sort of like Hillary Clinton, very boring, doesn't cause higher turnout, can't win an election. Paradigm is shifting. You're not going to win. Obama capitalized on the last paradigm perfectly. The Republicans fucking failed. Now the Republicans have reformed. The reform movement is similar. They lose in an election where it should have been, and Trump is correct when he says this. Mitt Romney, technically, he should have won. But the Republican Party stopped him from winning by cheating Ron Paul and hemorrhaging some 10 million voters or so. A considerable, not a majority, but a considerable portion of the disproportionately younger Ron Paul supporters did not back Romney. I was one of them. I liked Ron Paul. I ended up voting for Ron Paul. I'm not going to cast my vote for Mitt Romney. I'm not going to waste my time. Because if I want those policies, I'll just vote for Obama again like I did in 2008. Because, hey, there's no difference between them. The Republican Party crashes and burns. They get completely ass-blasted. Then the populists come along with Donald Trump and say, hey, we can form a synthesis here. I can be establishment friendly, but I'm also a maverick, and he simply brands it as I'm an actual conservative. The Boehnerites over there, they're not real conservatives. They're basically cowards. They're just establishmentarians. He's not entirely wrong. The Democrats over the next few years, what I expect at this point, when I see the infighting, especially over Maxine Waters and immigration and taxes and socialism versus neoliberalism, when I see all of this infighting, the Democratic Party looks exactly like the Republicans around 2013. That is, you're going to start, I think, to see the rise of outsiders among the Democrats. Now, here's an interesting proposal. if the Democrats did manage to do blue wave mode politics, if they take the House back and they feel optimistic, they'll lose 2020 because there's no reform movement. And once again, the neoliberals, because they have the money within the party, they're the corporate candidates, will steamroll the progressives again. You'll get another Hillary Clinton-style candidate. That's a 100% chance at that point, and they'll lose. Trump will wipe them off the face of the earth, and the party will then collapse. Or it could collapse after the midterms because the Republicans have a red wave. And I'm thinking that's more likely now, like a week ago, giving the preliminary prediction, hey, at this trajectory, the Republicans narrowly keep the House and maybe gain a Senate seat or two. I think it's going to be better than that now, because I don't choose to think that, generally speaking, the progressives can't run a national election. There aren't enough of them. But the neoliberals have pissed on them so long that there's no reason for that large minority of the party to even vote. They're not going to turn out in large numbers. You think there's going to be high turnout in a lot of these races where the person defending their seat or trying to win is a neoliberal? Now, the Ocasio-Cortez, I believe her name is, just won and unseated a 4-term incumbent neoliberal within the Democratic Party, and it's all over the news right now. Crowley, I think their name was, which is when I first saw it trending, I didn't realize it had anything to do with politics. I'm like, oh, a new Aleister Crowley book was found. It's like they dug it out of his floorboards, and it's called the Necronomicon or something. It'd be funny. But no, when that happens, you can see the paradigm beginning to shift. Would that have happened a few years ago? No, of course not. The neoliberals would just pump money into the race and they'd be done with it. But the internet's become too powerful for the neoliberals. Hillary Clinton runs a 90s-style campaign. She has virtually no youth turnout outside of California and New York City, and it doesn't help her. There's a reason she managed to win the popular vote by a decent margin while being completely destroyed in the Electoral College. Because California is not the only state in the United States. It's also why they want a direct democracy now, so they can fuck around with things further. Now, by the way, be careful what you wish for the next time that the paradigm shifts and there's a fascist upsurge or something and you've made everything directly democratic. Wonderful. You destabilized the whole fucking continent. These people aren't playing with a full deck. They're not even playing with half a deck. But the Democratic coalition has a problem. The Republicans, the Boehnerite establishmentarians, and the sort of vaguely libertarian, the Ron Paul populist or paleocon side, Trump is sort of the middleman holding those together into a coalition. That is, he can drive higher turnout among the outsiders within the party, while he can also help the establishment to defend itself. He's capable of doing that as long as they allow him to reform things. Right now, they're still obstructing him on many counts other than on actual tax relief and deregulation, which is a good thing. Now, I wish they'd give him his wall. They'd definitely win 2020 if they do that. The Democrats have another problem, though. They don't have any glue holding that coalition together. There are 3 components in the Democrats' current coalition. You have the progressive movement. It's disproportionately younger and more minority-friendly. The neoliberals, this is the largest group. They're the ones that bring in all the money. They tend to be older and more white. And then you have, the middle America sort of bloc, the Reagan Democrats, basically. Some millions of people working, the lower middle class, certain parts of the country, typically more common, like a Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, some of these states that are very competitive, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Certainly the Rust Belt voters. Some millions of people who can really swing an election, as we saw in the last election. They've all left the party, though. And because of Trump being a money president, they're going to stay out of the party. They're not going to rejoin the Democrats this time around. Not until the Democrats give up the idea of higher taxes, the problem being they keep coming out and mentioning it in passing. Oh, yeah, well, the deficit's going up. We need to raise taxes. Yeah, really great way to win back Michigan. I think that all of those states that flipped red for Trump will go more red in 2020 unless something apocalyptic happens and Trump's approval falls below 40%. I think he's got a 90% chance at this moment of winning 2020. And that's really the best thing for the Democrats, too, because they need to reform their party if they want to stay competitive. The other option, if they continue to stagnate and the neoliberals for several more cycles remain dominant, their party could literally, it's happened before, you look at maybe the Whig movement or some of these independent movements that have cropped up, it could achieve minor party status. That is, that it no longer has enough political control to even really fund itself, and something else comes along potentially during that period of instability and replaces it. You could see the Republicans and the Libertarians, or a Republican versus a socialist movement or something within the U.S. I mean that completely. It's happened before within politics, not just here, but in other countries quite commonly. You have major shifts in public opinion in short periods of time. A movement that was very powerful gets wiped out. You'd think of maybe the way the Liberal Democrats are within the UK, almost non-existent despite having been at least a minor partner in some weird coalition they had there for a while. Now they almost don't exist, so nobody votes for them. They don't have any faith in them because they shrunk so heavily as a party. Or then you have some of these, think of like UKIP doubling its vote share for several elections. I know that's different because in the UK you can get like 20-30% of the votes in your country, and you don't have any representation, and it's all very strange, and I don't know that it's the most fair system within. I think our political system arguably is more fair, which is really weird and somewhat dismal, I think, for the people living on Rainy Island over there. But the Democratic coalition is not strong. All these people saying, well, look how weak Trump is, look how weak the Republicans are. They've got to glue to bond their coalition together. They don't even need the majority of the population. They simply have to energize that core voting bloc of people that turn out at higher levels anyway. Because elections, fundamentally within the U.S., in many elections, you have a situation where the candidates, they have about even support in many cases, and certainly in many competitive states. And it comes down to who, even before it came down to who raised more money. Thankfully, in the internet era, that's actually sort of passing by. We see Hillary Clinton outraised now spent Trump 10 times for most of the race. He still ended up winning. It no longer matters. It's about turnout differentials more than almost anything else at this point. Trump's going to have middling approval when he goes in the election. It's higher than Obama's was at the same term within his presidency. He's doing better than Obama did. Obama wiped the floor with Mitt Romney. Trump will probably win additional states. I think at this point there are a couple of states that he might lose that he won that are becoming maybe more blue. And there are plenty of states that went narrowly blue that he could win. He could crack into the Pacific Northwest for all you know based on the drug issue. He could come out and pillory Jeff Sessions and then say, hey, I'm going to be the weed president. I'm going to legalize other stuff too and it'll be funny. End up with a bunch of pot growers associations endorsing him. Wouldn't that be funny? Donald Trump, the first stoner president. That's about all. Peace out.